Hey, what's up guys? Matt here, back with another project. I'm doing the 3 alternator power steering and air conditioning belt on the Acura Integra. So this should work on pretty much all of the B series. There's a little bit of differences between like maybe a CRV, Civics, but typically this is about the same for almost all Civics, Integra, CRVs, pretty much all in general. So on this Integra, this is a 98 Acura GSR. I'm going to show you just how simple it is to change out these 3 belts. Alright, so these are the 3 belts that I got for this Acura Integra GSR. I went to rockauto.com and these were some of the cheaper belts, but pretty much everything from Rock Auto is always pretty good. So this is the power steering, your air conditioning, and your alternator. And if I'm not mistaken, this is like 30.5 inches round or long. This is 33 inches long and this one's 36.5. So just kind of a reference. But anyway, so I'll drop a link down in the description below. All right, so we need to jack the car up so we can get access through the wheel well. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a breaker bar and a 19, and I'm gonna go ahead and take off these lug nuts. So I'm just going to break it loose with it here on the ground. So I got all those broke loose. So now I'm going to go ahead and raise the car. All right, so we have the car lifted up. So let's put a jack stand under here. Okay. So what I did is I supported it right underneath the lower control arm, and I'm going to leave the jack under here for support as well. Slide that under the car. How you know that you need to change out your belts, if you look at this belt, you see how cracked it is? I mean, it's even missing almost a whole row. And then like for my alternator belt, you can see that one as well. So this is how you know when you need to replace it. These are past due, so this would be a great time to do all 3. When you're doing this, you need to do all 3. So the first thing I like to do is let's go ahead and remove this ground strap out of the way. I'm just going to take this one 10mm off right here. Okay, I'm just going to tuck that out of the way. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to break loose both of these 12mm that hold the power steering on. And what we're going to do, since we're replacing all of the belts, we're actually going to remove both of these bolts. All right, so by removing both of those, now our power steering is free. We're going to take the reservoir, pick it straight up. All right, and then you see this right here, this is your tensioner. We're actually gonna back that all the way out. All right, with that backed all the way out, you can just leave it there, but I'm just gonna pull this all the way out and lay that with the rest. All right, so now you can see that your belt is off. Now you can move your power steering pump. So I'm just gonna just lay it up on top of the bracket like this. So now you can see you have access to your air conditioning. So for your air conditioning, this is your tensioner. Let's go ahead and break this 12mm loose and this 14mm right here behind the belt. So what I'm using is a long extension, maybe a 6-inch extension, and a deep well 12. So we can get all the room that we want. So now let's break loose our 14. Okay, I lied, it's a 12, and it's gonna be hard to get your ratchet down in there. So it'd be easier if you have a ratcheting wrench, especially the one that pivots at the end, so you can get it to slip on to that right there. So with that being said, now we just got to break that loose. Okay, and all you got to do is just back it off about 1/4 to 1/2 a turn, just enough to drop the tensioner down. So that tensioner, see how it pivots? So we're going to let that pivot down, and then you can slide your belt off. Come underneath. So here was our power steering belt. It goes right here. Okay, so to take off your power steering belt, that's the first one. Now this is, the middle one is your air conditioning belt. To get it to actually come out, this mount has to be dropped down. It's got these 14 millimeters on both sides, so you have to take both of those out. Now once you got those two 14 millimeters, this right here, see how it's separated? Now you actually have some room to slide your old belt off. You'll be able to slide the belt off right through there. So there's those two belts. So the last one is your alternator belt. So from underneath, you'll see here's the bottom bolt that holds the alternator on. Come up top, you'll see right there on the top, there's a 12. So you need to break loose that 12, because that's where it's going to pivot at. I mean, that's going to be the tensioning half. I'm just using a ratcheting wrench. Right here, this is a 14. So once you have both of those broke loose, you should be able to pivot it towards the motor, and that should allow you to pull the belt off. All right, so putting everything back on, let's do it in reverse order. Put your alternator belt on first. Okay, so to get the alternator belt on, I ended up having to, this one is a 30 inches and a half. Well, the one that came off, it was 31 inches. So to get it on, I had to start it at the top, slide it all the way down to here, get it started on here, and then turn this. I know you're supposed to go counterclockwise with the motor, but I went clockwise just to get this on. And I just let it do its thing. But anyway, so that's how I had to get that belt on. And that's a 19 millimeter, by the way. What you need to adjust the tension is either a pry bar or a long flathead screwdriver. All right, so make sure the nut is almost already tightened, except just barely broke loose, so you can put your tension on it, and then snug that up, and then it shouldn't move. Yep, so it shouldn't move once you remove that. So now you can go back down the bottom. So basically you just want about that much deflection when you push on. With the AC belt, the first thing you're going to want to do is to get it slid back underneath that mount right here. So now once you've got that pulled down and you've got those done, you can go ahead, and if you want to, you can go ahead and tighten those two 14s back up, and then we can put this belt on. But just to show you, so I'm just going to lay it on top of the air conditioning. We're going to slide it on this middle, and then come back up top and slide it on your pulley. Come back up at the top, our tensioner pulley, just like so. So now the air conditioning belt's on. You really want to tighten this 8 millimeter at the end of it, because this is going to be your lock nut to tighten that down. If you don't have an 8 millimeter, a 9/32. A 9/32 will do the trick. Okay. So you just want that pretty tight. So if you come back up underneath here, you can see about that much deflection. That's about all you want. And then tighten tighten down your 12mm lock nut. So now the last thing we have is just the power steering. So now you can come back up and slide your power steering back over, put that down below here, and go ahead and put your tensioner. Go ahead and put your tensioner piece back in and screw that onto there. So now once you have your tensioner piece back on, now you should be able to go ahead and put your belt on. So grab your longest belt, and I would say drop it down from the top, come underneath, and bring it around and hook it on there. Now that you've got that hooked on, now go ahead and get your two 12mm that hold your power steering pump back to the bracket and put those back in. All right, once you got both of those started, go ahead and okay, so I just got them snug, so I'm going to back them off about a quarter turn. Okay, so now we're able to turn this, and if you watch it, make sure your belt is still on the crank pulley and your power steering pulley. And just turn that until you got about the same tension. Basically, I just turn it until I about can't turn it, because this is just by hand. And then now let's tighten those up. Okay, and these don't have to be super tight, guys, so just snug these up. But you don't want to strip that out, because if you strip that out, now you'll be looking for another power steering pump. Don't forget to put your ground strap back on and slip your hoses back in their brackets. So slip your power steering hose back in there, and then don't forget to slide your reservoir back in this bracket. All right, and just snug this one up. All right, now let's crank it up and make sure we don't have any squealing and no lights on. So make sure you don't have no alternator lights on. I'm gonna make sure I kick my AC on. Let's go back out here. So now you can put your wheel back on. All right, pat yourself on the back, because you just completed your 3 accessory belts like they need to be done whenever they're starting to crack or it's been several years. This is something that needs to be done pretty regularly on these, and to keep it from squealing, and so you don't have one break on you going down the road and lose one of your accessories. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for some more of these how-to videos and some of my builds, and thanks for watching. Peace.